Hello and welcome to a new topic. What is vocabulary? Basically, when we talk about vocabulary, what comes to our mind is a collection of words. And this term comes from a Greek word, and that Greek word is lexis. Sometimes we also call it lexicon. And together they form the meaning of like all the words in language. Continue our discussion about what is vocabulary. So vocabulary is all about words in a language that is known to all. Sometimes we also refer to as word stock. But vocabulary is not only about words and word stock. Yet vocabulary is much more than just single words. It is beyond single words. Of course, single words form the part of vocabulary, but they are not just the words to be included within vocabulary. The story is more than that. What is that? Let's further talk about what is vocabulary. We call it lexical chunks. In other words, sometimes we call the same idea like multi-word expressions. We also have the same idea into another set of words, and we call it formulaic sequences. And what are they? Let's talk about lexical chunks. Phrases of two or more words are referred to as lexical chunks. Let's first talk about examples. Good morning. This lexical chunk consists of two words. Likewise, we have good evening, good night, we have nice to meet you. This phrase contains more than two words. Likewise, we have see you soon. So what we notice is that these examples consist of lexical chunks. We accept them as one unit and they are very easy to learn. That is how you can also know how to memorize new words. We continue our discussion. Formulaic sequences. As I told you, lexical chunks are also referred to as formulaic sequences. How? Let's first have the repetition of those examples like good morning, good evening, good night, nice to meet you, see you soon. As we know these examples, what we notice is that phrases like these involve more than one word. Of course, just we have talked about. But what is important to notice is that they have a clear formulaic usage and make up a significant portion of a spoken or written English language usage. So formulaic usage means that they have a clear, definite pattern, and we memorize these group of words as one chunk, as one sequence of formula, and it remains longer in our memory. Good morning is good morning. We don't say good morning with any other expression. That is what the idea is here. So what we have come to know is that we have lexis, we have lexical chunks, we have formulaic sequences, we have multi-word expressions. All of them more or less have the same meaning. They have the same objective. They have the same idea. And what is here important to know is that they are central to English vocabulary learning and therefore worth teachers' attention as they teach vocabulary. Web and Nation 2017. So vocabulary is not only about lexis, not only about words. They are also equally more about lexical chunks, formulaic sequences, multi-word expressions. So what we come to know about the idea of vocabulary, definition of vocabulary, is that they consist of words in a language, that is to say words of a language. They can be referred to as single items, like single words. And we have a number of single words as we memorize in our day-to-day life, day-to-day activities. But vocabulary also includes phrases or chunks of several words, like the one we have just talked about. Why? Because they all convey a particular. So this is all about vocabulary. What is vocabulary? It is not only about a single word. It is not only about a collection of words. It is also about lexical chunks. It is also about multi-word expressions. It is also about phrases, and they all constitute the part of vocabulary which give us a clear message, a clear meaning about any concept. Importance of vocabulary. Vocabulary is central to English language teaching. In fact, without sufficient vocabulary, students cannot understand anyone. They even cannot express their own ideas. As British linguist David A. Wilkins eloquently puts it, without grammar, very little can be conveyed. Without vocabulary, nothing can be conveyed. So what we come to know about importance of vocabulary is that without grammar, somehow you can speak, somehow you can convey your ideas, you can express yourself. But without vocabulary, without words and their meanings, I think it's really impossible to communicate with others. So here we come to know the place of vocabulary in language learning, importance of vocabulary in language learning, how important it is, how significant it is to know more about vocabulary than about grammar. Of course, grammar is important, but the more important is vocabulary. So we have some more ideas in this direction about importance of vocabulary. Lewis, 1993, goes further to argue. And what does he argue? He says, lexis is the core or heart of language. When we say lexis, that is to say lexicon, that is to say the word. And he says that word is the core or heart of the language, soul of the language. If you take words out of the language, in fact, language does not exist at all. If you take grammar out of language, somehow you can be able to communicate, you can talk. And there are so many people, they talk even knowing much more about grammar. Sometimes even they don't know how to construct sentences grammatically well. But without words, of course, it's impossible to express. We have some more ideas. As students develop greater fluency and expression in English, it is significant for them to acquire more productive vocabulary knowledge. So when students slowly have the fluency in English language, they also have to chalk out vocabulary studies to know more about them, to advance their knowledge of words. We have some more ideas. As Skimmit 2010 notes, learners carry around dictionaries and not grammar books. What he means to say is that dictionary, which is normally collection of words, normally talks about words, which talks about vocabulary. What he means to say is that dictionaries, that is to say vocabulary, that is to say list of words, is more important than the books of grammar. We continue our discussion. Voltaire purportedly said language is very difficult to put into words. He says that if you have no command over words, it will be very difficult for you to put ideas into proper order to make your language effective. What is language basically? Language is the art of putting words in a logical and artistic manner. If you know how to arrange your words beautifully, if you know how to put your words beautifully, that makes your language more appealing, more soothing, more persuasive. What is the difference between language of a common man and the language of a poet? A language of a common man, for him, it's very difficult to put ideas into words. But for a poet, it's very easy. It's a very artistic experience for him to put ideas into words, and then the language becomes very fascinating and appealing to the heart and mind. That is here what he means to say. We continue our discussion about importance of vocabulary. When you have a wider vocabulary in your target language, it helps support all four language skills. So if you have a wide range of words and meanings in your mind, it is going to help you, of course, in all four language skills. As Paul Nation 2015 noted, what he said? He says, vocabulary is not an end in itself. A rich vocabulary makes the skills of listening, speaking, reading and writing easier to perform. So the more words you know, the more meaningful impact it can have on the four skills. So what we come to understand about the significance of vocabulary in language learning is that without knowing words, it would be very difficult for you to learn a language. It would be very difficult for you to communicate, to express freely. Without knowing grammar, somehow you can be able to communicate. But without knowing words, it would be almost impossible to communicate. That is here the point. Three aspects of vocabulary or word. What are they? The first one is form, the second one is meaning, and the third one is use. Now let's discuss each one of them in detail a bit. Form of word. What is that? It involves pronunciation, a spoken form. We have the next point. It also involves a spelling, a written form. We have some more ideas. It even includes any word part such as root, prefix or suffix. So form of a word consists of pronunciation, spelling, as well as any other word part which may be root, prefix or suffix, and together we make up the form of a word. We continue our discussion, that is to say, meaning of word. What does it mean? What does it refer to? It refers to the idea a word conveys. It simplifies the concept. In fact, meaning encompasses both the spoken and written form of a word. So meaning of word together, it is generated from both the spoken and written form. We continue our ideas. Use of word. As Nation 2020 notes, it involves the grammatical functions of the word, phrase and collocation, how they are used in a sentence in different contexts, in different situations, grammatically. We continue our discussion. Form, meaning and use of word, all three together. They have both a receptive and productive dimension. When we say receptive is when you receive something, reception of something, observation of something, understanding of something, comprehension of something, and productive when you speak or when you write. That is to say, the expression, your way of telling something to someone. In order to enhance or build learners' knowledge of words and phrases, it is important for them to learn any and all of these different components or aspects of a word. So it's very significant for a learner if he or she wants to enhance or build up vocabulary. It's very important for them to know all the three aspects of a word, various dimensions of a word, that is to say, form, meaning, and its use. Only then they can. This will greatly assist them in improving their English vocabulary knowledge and use. What is involved in knowing a word? There are 4 different essential aspects which are very important in knowing a word. The first one is aspect of a word. The second one is component of a word. The third one is receptive knowledge of a word. And fourth is productive knowledge of a word. So all these 4 elements make up and help us in knowing a word completely. Let's discuss each one of them in detail. And the first one is aspect of a word. And I already talked about this topic in my lesson 3. And what is the aspect of a word? There are 3 different essential elements. And the first one is form, which we call form of a word. Then we have meaning. After form, then meaning becomes very important to understand a word. And then we have use, how to use a word. Now we will talk about the form of a word. So let's talk about first component of a word. When we say component of a word, the first component of a word is form. This we have a spoken form of a word, we have written form of a word, and we have word parts. Together all these 3 elements help us forming a word. Further, a spoken form of a word has 2 parts. The first one is receptive knowledge and the second one is productive knowledge. Likewise, in the written form of a word, we have also receptive knowledge and productive knowledge. And in the same manner, word parts also having the 2 aspects, that is receptive knowledge and productive knowledge. But what do we mean by receptive knowledge and productive knowledge? When we say receptive knowledge, it refers to what does the word sound like, how we receive it in sound when somebody speaks to us. Go to the next point, productive knowledge. How is the word pronounced? How is the word spoken to? How is the word expressed? This is the productive aspect of knowledge of a word. Likewise, in the written form of language, the receptive knowledge means what does the word look like? Not sound like, look like, because the written form of a word. And productive knowledge, how is the word written and spelled? How it is written and what is the spelling of the word. Then likewise, we have word parts, form of a word, receptive knowledge and productive knowledge. What parts are recognizable in this word? Like if the word is longer a bit with many syllables, so which part is more recognizable? Easy to notice, easy to memorize? And the productive knowledge, what word parts are needed to express the meaning, particularly in the compound words, particularly with the word having prefix and suffix and root and all that. So what parts are needed to express the meaning? So in knowing a word, all these 3 elements form the fundamentals aspects of learning vocabulary. Hope you understand the concept. Thank you and goodbye.